from the unknown. Call them now, 833-928-GOLD. So what are you waiting for? 833-928-GOLD. Get your gold you can hold from the Oxford Gold Group, 833-928-GOLD.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Works St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies overnight with a low around 63, Tuesday sunny with a high near 87, and Wednesday thunderstorms with a high around 82. Victor's 1959 Cafe on Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis is open for both dining room and outdoor patio service. All of your Cuban favorites are there, like the mango pancake, sandwich cubano, seafood paella, and more. Plus, takeout is still available. More at victors1959cafe.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hit me cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Hello and welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. Robert has started his Ho-Chunk legislative duties, and he can't be with us today, but he'll be back tomorrow. On Native Roots Radio, I'm Awake, we discuss national and Twin Cities Native American news and events. And as we all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. You can call them at 651-304-9986. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with your COVID-19 questions. On today's show, we have Maggie Lorenz, and Maggie is the executive director for the Lower Phalen Creek Project and Wakan Teepee Center. Later on in the show, we're going to have Louis Eagle Thunder. He's an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, and he is the Lakota guy on TikTok. But first, before we get to Maggie and Louis, let's go to Ogimaa with news and events. Hello, Ogimaa.
Hey, Anim Bonjour, Wendy. Thanks for introducing me. The first thing I want to chit chat with you about is there a crazy gray haze over the Twin Cities where you live right now?
Yes, there is. And excuse my voice today. I'm just getting over a cold. But yesterday on the news, they said that haze is caused by wildfires in Canada.
Yes, there's major wildfires happening in Ontario right now, and I heard that supposedly this haze is supposed to clear up, sometime later today, and hopefully be clear tomorrow. But that's really concerning, and I know we had some of that a little bit last summer when there was a lot of fires on the West Coast too. So I wanted to take that time today to kind of draw in those very real and very discernible things that are happening due to climate change in the world that we're living in right now. This level of fires that we've been having over the last, 2-3 years, would you say, Wendy?
Yeah, exactly. And all the heat waves that's happening out west, we're going to be hit with those in the heat in the next couple of days too. So, and we
Yeah.
the hottest, June on record. So we're in it. We're in the midst of it.
Yeah, Death Valley broke the official record for the hottest temperature ever measured on Earth on Friday. They reached 130 degrees Fahrenheit on Friday in Death Valley. So this is not normal. This is not okay. So with that being said, I'd like to go into what our water protectors in northern Minnesota are up to. Today, July 12th, Monday, water protectors did stop work at a Line 3 pipeline construction site in Carleton County. All 3 sites, people climbed on top of excavators and chained themselves to heavy machinery. There is a growing resistance movement that has been regularly delaying construction through nonviolent direct action since December over concerns about the threat that Line 3's pipeline poses to water, land, and indigenous sovereignty, as well as the future of the climate, and that is here in Minnesota. So if you are in Minnesota, this Thursday at the Shell City Campground from 12 to 3 is going to be an event. It's called Women for the Rivers to Stop Line 3. They are going to be practicing treaty rights at a rally at the Shell River where the Enbridge Corporation is preparing to drill for the dangerous Line 3 tar sands pipeline. They are going to be having Indigenous leaders and in guests, including V, who is formerly known as Eve Ensler, who is the writer of the Vagina Monologues, if any of you know her. Or them, the Academy Award-winning actress Marissa Tomei, and obviously climate leaders, Indigenous climate leaders. So there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of women, but people of any gender are welcome to come and join that event. Again, that's this Thursday from 12 to 3 p.m. at the Shell City Campground that's near Park Rapids, Minnesota. You can RSVP and get info about getting on a bus to carpool by going to stopline3, and that's the number 3.org/events/women for the rivers. Another event that's coming up this week is the community film screening of the film First Daughter and the Black Snake, which will happen on July 17th at 8 p.m., which I believe is Saturday. This is via Extinction Rebellion. The film shows the journey of Winona LaDuke, who we have join our show on a pretty regular basis, who believes big oil is the black snake predicted in the Indigenous prophecy that would bring about the Earth's destruction. So it is a really good movie if you haven't seen it. It's also kicking off a week of arts and actions to defund Line 3 because activists around the country are organizing art buildings and protests to denounce the loan renewals for Enbridge on July 22nd and July 23rd. So more info on that coming up. The other thing that I want to talk about today, that people, I don't know how many people in Minnesota are really aware of this, but in the United States, there's more than 30 states that have passed anti-protesting laws in recent years to stop the same kind of protests that are happening to stop Line 3 here in Minnesota. This is civil disobedience that's happening here. There are several anti-protest laws that are currently pending in the Minnesota legislature. So a lot of these new laws increase fees and jail times for those that are convicted. In Montana, one of the new laws includes a person being found guilty of damaging, quote, critical infrastructure could be fined up to $150,000 and imprisoned for 30 years.
Montana even added additional charges for those who assist protesters. So people who are taking part in things like civil disobedience and protests, these are the things that got us, this is how the civil rights movement came about, were these same types of protests. And in Minnesota, of the 6 currently pending anti-protest laws in Minnesota, 4 of those are specifically related to oil and gas pipeline protesting.
Wow, that's unbelievable. You have a better chance of getting out sooner if you murder somebody.
It kind of sounds like it. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, and it just blows my mind. Like, so in Minnesota, there's 6 pending laws related to protesting. 4 of those 6 are specific to oil and gas pipeline or companies are protesting against them. The other 2 are one that bars public benefits such as student aid and food support. And then the last, increased fines and jail times for those who protest by blocking a roadway. The funny thing about all of these is that all of these were introduced between January and March of 2021 into the Minnesota legislature. Construction on the Line 3 pipeline and related protests surrounding it began in Minnesota in December of 2020. So this is no accident that these very specific anti-pipeline protest laws are coming to a head here in Minnesota. So tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about ways that you can get involved, that you can show up and you can help fight Line 3. But if you can't participate in direct action, you can't risk arrest. There's a lot of different and good ways that you can get involved to help. So I'm going to talk some more about that tomorrow when I have a little bit more time. But I want to let you guys, let everybody who's listening know that this is really important. Like, this is not just a Minnesota issue. This is not something that is going to just affect Indigenous people. This affects all of us here in Minnesota, and it's going to affect everybody downstream of us from the Mississippi headwaters down. They're drilling underneath the Mississippi headwaters for this project. So this is a really big deal. And I'm probably going to talk about it until I am blue in the face. Wendy knows I talk about this every day, but I am on air right now, and I don't know how many people are listening to me, but I'm absolutely begging you, if you are a progressive citizen who believes in climate change and you want to help, helping stop Line 3 is a good way to do it. Call Biden, call the Minnesota governor, come to Minnesota if you can, really do what you can to get involved with this. It's really important. We need people to come and stand for the water in Minnesota like they stood for Standing Rock. You went to Standing Rock, Wendy. How powerful was that?
Very powerful, and it's something that, people can do by getting involved. So I'm all for it, Ogimaa. Absolutely. You have to be there, and you have to show up, and you have to do what you feel is in your heart. And if you do that, things will fall into place. Maybe not exactly when you want them, but hopefully they will.
Exactly. It's really, and like I said, getting involved and taking action doesn't mean that you have to come and chain yourself to a bulldozer. You can make some phone calls and write some letters. That's just as important.
Exactly. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Please stay with us. Up next, Maggie Lorenz.
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
Over the past year and more, we've all missed out on a lot. Family time, graduations, weddings. And missing those events, we've missed out on even more. Friendships, connections, community, belonging. That's a long time to miss things this important. So don't miss on getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccines are now available throughout Hennepin County to anyone over the age of 16. Just visit takecarehennepin.org and sign up to get yours. That's takecarehennepin.org.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Calusa Nation.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, sitting in for Robert Pilot. I'm Wendy. This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 Hotline. Call them at 612-304-9986. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with your COVID-19 questions. So today we have Maggie Lorenz. Maggie is Dakota from the Spirit Lake Nation and is an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe. She is the executive director for Lower Phalen Creek Project and Wakan Teepee Center. Maggie serves on the board of directors at the F.R. Bigelow Foundation. She earned her BA in psychology from Metropolitan State University in 2010, and she has some exciting news today to share with us. Hello, Maggie. How are you?
Hi, Wendy. I'm good. I'm glad to be back on the show and talking to you guys. Hi, Ogimaa.
Hi, Maggie. It's good to hear from you. I'm so excited. I seen the news come through just earlier today, and I literally did one of these. I was like, I'm so excited. You got to tell us.
Yeah, and it's cool to see Lewis on the show, too. Hi.
Yeah, Lewis will be talking later on. So
I'm so excited. I'm so excited what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, so I've been on the show a few times now, Wendy, talking to you and Robert about the Wakan Teepee Center project that we've been working on here on the east side of St. Paul for the last few years. I've been here as a staff member, as the executive director for about 2 years, but this project has been long before I got involved. There's been a lot of work done by the board and the former leadership of the organization. So we're finally at this point now where we have raised enough money to construct the building. And so we are going to be breaking ground here this fall. And that news just came out in the Star Tribune today. So that was, we're really, really excited to be at this point and be able to start celebrating with our community and having all the ceremonies and celebrations for breaking ground and watching this center come to life.
Yeah, really. And it's a substantial amount of money, but I know that you will be asking for more. And, you know, we have people who are listening who may want to contribute to your needs here. So please let us know and let our audience know where they can, contribute money for this project. But let's back up a little bit. Let's let our audience know what the Lower Phalen Creek Project and the Wakan Teepee Center, what are they? Why are they here? How will they serve the community?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, Lower Phalen Creek Project is an environmental nonprofit located in St. Paul, Minnesota. We are Native-led, and we are developing this project, Wakan Teepee Center. And Wakan Teepee Center is going to be a 9,000 square foot cultural and environmental interpretive center that will serve to honor, protect, and interpret Dakota culture based on and around the Wakan Teepee sacred site in St. Paul. So this sacred site is a centuries old Dakota cave site that has been regarded as sacred by Dakota people and other Native nations who have made their homes in and around the St. Paul area. So we have a lot of amazing, incredible stories that we want to tell about this place. and the related and adjacent burial mounds at Indian Mounds Regional Park in St. Paul. So this entire area is not only locally significant, but is nationally significant when we think about not only Native nations prior to European contact, but what that contact, first contact looked like in this region in particular. And then when we think about, how industry colonization has changed the landscapes, I think the story here at Walkontepe in an urban area is so powerful and is such an incredible, I guess, case study, if you will, for looking at how sacred sites and Native nations have really been desecrated and oppressed and misused and abused after colonization, and what we are able to do now in 2021 to reclaim our relationships with these places, to reclaim our relationship and the way that we've always worked and been in these communities and these sites.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Maggie, really. I remember when you were on probably a couple of years ago, you were telling us about the Phalen Creek Project and how messed up it was. I mean, it was just kind of like a dump, really. Could you tell our audience how you regenerated and refurbished that whole area?
Yeah, so this site that we're talking about, Walkontepe, is a cave, a natural spring-fed cave at the base of a sandstone bluffs here in St. Paul. St. Paul is famous for its sandstone bluffs that line the Mississippi River. And in Dakota, the name of this entire area is Imanijaska, and Imanijaska means white bluffs. And so our language always does an incredible job of describing the important features of a place. That's how our place names work. So we don't name things typically after people, but after the essence of that place. And so this area along the Mississippi River in St. Paul, known as Imanijaska to Dakota people, is where Kapoja Village, one of the main Parawaktwan Dakota village sites, was here, one of the largest village sites. And part of that community at Kapoja Village was this sacred cave site where a lot of ceremonies took place for many centuries. Generations upon generations of Dakota families and people have prayed and had ceremony at this place. And then above the bluffs, along the top of the bluffs in Imanijaska and St. Paul, have been just hundreds and hundreds of burial mounds along the bluff from St. Paul all the way down to Prairie Island, present-day Prairie Island near Red Wing, Minnesota. And so, but this area that we're specifically working at with my organization, Lower Phalen Creek Project, is the public parks and green spaces that exist and continue to exist here in St. Paul, where we can create some public-private partnerships with the city to protect and honor these sacred cultural resources that are still in the ground, still very alive and very much in need of protection and reconnection for our communities. So the Walkontepe cave site is in a 27-acre nature sanctuary that is now known as Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary. And this sanctuary, after European contact and colonization, after the Dakota exile from Minnesota, went through a period of time where through tourism and a lot of people trying to visit this site, destroyed a lot of the petroglyphs that were inside of the cave, thousands of years old, that really were there to honor this place as a sacred site. The railroad then came through and destroyed further the entrance to this cave. And then after about 100 years of industrialization and use through different oil and rail line industry, the site was abandoned, polluted and toxic, and that's when Lower Phalen Creek Project as an organization in the late 90s came in, worked with a lot of different partners, including the Trust for Public Land and, of course, the City of St. Paul, to get this land transferred to the city for public use, and then started doing a major cleanup project and rehabilitated this site with native plantings. And so if you go down to the site today, it's really hard to believe that this was a toxic, polluted trash dump for decades between its use for industry and then the reclamation as a nature sanctuary.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Maggie, as a Lakota, I always think about repatriation and just this amazing story about Wakan TP with everything that happened there. And growing up on the east side a little bit, by Warner Road, there was caves there that had to be demolished, right? And there was just not a reverence or a care in the world about these sacred sites. And we think about, even the Black Hills with, Shakpe Tunkashila, which is, the Mount Rushmore, the story of repatriation of these lands is so important. And this work is so important. Do you have any advice for people that want to get involved in, repatriation of sacred sites? And what are the first steps? Because it seems so big to a lot of us, like, where do we go? Like, we care about these sites. These sites mean something for the seventh generation. How do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that the work that we've been able to accomplish here with Wakan Tipi will serve as a guide and model for others communities who want to be able to take back control and restore and provide some protections for sacred sites in their communities. So that's one big project that now that we've raised the money for Wakan Tipi Center in the building, as we develop our programs and exhibits, one of the things we really want to develop is a community user guide for how communities can replicate this kind of work in their own areas. And so, but for now, I think one of the things I can say is persistence. This project has been ongoing since 2005. So the better part of 20 years, about 16 years, we've been working on this project, and we're still not done yet. So with the building, we still have more work ahead of us. So
thank you so much, Maggie.
Yeah.
Can you stay on for a little while longer? We have to take a break.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Over the past year and more, we've all missed out on a lot. Family time, graduations, weddings. And missing those events, we've missed out on even more. Friendships, connections, community, belonging. That's a long time to miss things this important. So don't miss on getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccines are now available throughout Hennepin County to anyone over the age of 16. Just visit takecarehennepin.org and sign up to get yours. That's takecarehennepin.org.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, free, and approved for everyone over the age of 12. Need help getting a COVID-19 vaccine? Trusted community connectors can find vaccination sites, make appointments, answer questions, and provide interpretation. To learn more about scheduling a free appointment or find a community connector, visit ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine. That's ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine.
Mornings can be tough, unless, of course, you're listening to The Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
In Minnesota, perinatal and postpartum mothers have legal protections to help keep them safe and healthy in the workplace. That means exclusions from heavy lifting, safe spots for breastfeeding, and more. The Women's Economic Security Act protects the rights of pregnant and postpartum women to work safely during pregnancy and to express breast milk at work. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry is here to help you and to protect your rights. Call 800-342-5354 or visit dli.mn.gov/newparents.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies overnight with a low around 63, Tuesday sunny with a high near 87, and Wednesday thunderstorms with a high around 82. Victor's 1959 Cafe on Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis is open for both dining room and outdoor patio service. All of your Cuban favorites are there, like the mango pancake, sandwich cubano, seafood paella, and more. Plus, takeout is still available. More at victors1959cafe.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back. Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. I'm sitting in for Robert. This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice. And we're talking to Maggie Lorenz today. Maggie is Dakota from the Spirit Lake Nation and an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe. She is the executive director for Lower Phalen Creek Project and Wakan Teepee Center. Maggie serves on the board of directors at the F.R. Bigelow Foundation. She earned her BA in psychology from Metropolitan State University in 2010. Thanks for staying with us, Maggie. And I think Ogimaa might have a question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask Maggie, this is Ogimaa. Hi. If you hadn't said it already, I know you're going to put up this big, beautiful building, but do you guys have a date for groundbreaking for that ceremony and everything you were talking about?
Yeah, so that's the question, and we are really, really excited about moving forward with planning all of those great celebrations and ceremonies for breaking ground on this project. So likely this will be in October. We haven't set the date yet, but tentatively, folks can save the date for Indigenous Peoples Day, which is when we're kind of aiming for a groundbreaking celebration. And so we're just now pulling together our planning team. One of your regular guests on the show, Robert Lilligren, has agreed to join our planning team. So we're really excited about that. And he's just been a really incredible supporter of the project along the way as well. So we're really, really excited about having a great celebration for the community to come together as we break ground for this building.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Maggie. And I'm just kind of thinking about when it's all done and when it's all pretty and beautiful, when it's, ready for people to come and learn all this wonderful information that you're going to have there. Did anybody kind of speculate and kind of think about like how many visitors per year that you might expect, or is anybody thinking about like that? Because I would want to know, like, wow, how many people? I know that Robert and I will definitely come when it's all finished to learn. I have so much to learn, and I learn a little bit every day. So how many people do you think that, or do you even know that?
Yeah, well, we have some estimates that we've done. We've worked with our consultants, our project management consultants, fundraising consultants, and then we had a study done by the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota. And so we know that about 300,000 people use the Bruce Vento Trail every year. And Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, where this building will be located, is at the trailhead for that trail. And we know that we have a lot of the people that use the St. Paul Park system, including Indian Mounds Regional Park and Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, Sweet Hollow Park, and Lake Phalen, which are all connected by trails to this site. So based on those numbers, we're anticipating a conservative kind of estimate of serving about 35,000 people every year at this center. So that includes people who are visiting for the day. That includes field trips from different schools and groups, and ongoing programming that we're going to have for youth and community members as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. Is it going to be like set up more of like a museum type of thing? And there's going to be tours through there, and tell us a little bit about what the final project's going to look like.
Yeah, well, right now we're going through a visitor interpretive experience plan process. So that's really going to tell us more about what we're going to see when people come to visit the center, what kind of exhibits, whether they're physical exhibits or digital apps, those kinds of things. So we're kind of going through all of that development right now, and we have a great team assembled that's going to help us kind of visualize and vision what those things will look like. But right now we do know that we want this place to be less of a museum where things are behind glass, where our culture seems like something antique that can't be touched. We know that things like moccasins and our regalia, our dance regalia, and different cultural items like that are things that we use in everyday life. And we want to make sure that with this center, when people come to visit, they understand not only is this a historically sacred site for Dakota people that we have used for, and interacted for generations and generations, but also that we are a living people, a living community, and that we're still making moccasins and we're still making dance regalia, and we want people to be able to interact and touch those things that are part of our culture. And so we know that we're going to be a little less focused on artifacts and a little bit more focused on modern cultural elements and pieces. So I think that will be a little bit of a difference where people can actually interact with our culture in a living way. And there will definitely be guided site visits for people who are interested in learning more about the site, the native plants on site. We'll be telling a variety of different stories about the landscape, the geology of the site, the cultural history. And so there will be a lot of different ways for people to come and experience the site and the building, and different ways. I think kind of the ultimate goal is that every time somebody comes to the center, there will be something new that people can learn. So we anticipate having a lot of rotating exhibits and programs so that we'll always have something fresh and new for people.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I have the Star Tribune piece right here, and Juanita Espinoza is a Dakota elder, and she kind of said what you just did, and I'm going to quote her here. It's in the paper. Everything we are working towards makes it feel like we're coming home, she said. But as with designing a house, so many things come into play. It will be a place where we can come together, and she doesn't want the place to be sterile. Just exactly what you were saying, that she wants to feel like she's coming home.
Exactly.
Maggie, what I wanted to say too is that, people often don't realize that the Dakota were ethnically cleansed from Minnesota. They don't understand that history and the history of, not only coming back, but coming back and telling our own story. Why I love this project and I love what you're doing is because the Smithsonian takes an antiquity approach to our culture, right? They have moccasins behind screens. They have us in antiquity. And this is actually an indigenous project and told by indigenous people. I think that's so important. And do you think that's really important for our community? And when you look at not only the east side of St. Paul that's been so active in it, but just the greater community in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I mean, what does this mean for them?
Yeah, I think, for those of us who have been really involved in the project, our board members and our committee members, and those people who have volunteered on our pre-design committees and have been, actively involved in developing this project, it's very empowering to be able to be in a position where we are in control at the end of the day of the stories that are being told here about our people. Sometimes it can be frustrating, and there's this invisibility of Dakota people here in our own homelands. And as Lakota people, we're really the only people who can say that we have our creation story right here in Minnesota. And so I think it's important for us to be able to have that authority to tell our stories, to claim space outside of the borders of a reservation. The entire state of Minnesota is our homelands, and we should be able to have a place, especially here in the urban area, where we feel like we can come home. And having a place where there's so much cultural significance, I think is just, it's just been an incredible project to be involved in. And I think there's going to be, I think this project has the potential to really shift not only the east side and the St. Paul community, but really the entire metro area and region in how we think about working with Native people too. I mean, just the story about how we've worked with the city of St. Paul, the Metropolitan Council, the county, those stories are really something to behold, I guess. It's just been really, really incredible, the type of partnerships we've been able to build and the type of things we've been able to accomplish in these lands that are technically owned by other entities that are not in Dakota hands. So it's just really, really incredible, I think, the work that's happening here.
Yeah. Maggie, it's great. There's a project going on in my neighborhood over here in Highland Park, a big development going on. And weren't you involved with some of the park's names in that area?
Yeah, so the Ford site redevelopment for the Highland Bridge community in St. Paul. There are going to be 4 new community parks, city parks, that are going to be added to that area as part of, and I think that's about 140 acres, somewhere around there, that whole site. And so within that site, there will be 4 new city parks established. And we were asked to help vet some names that community members suggested for names of these parks. And a lot of the names that were suggested or recommended were Dakota words. And so Lower Phalen Creek and some of our board members and staff came together, and we helped kind of go through those names and vet them, and then make recommendations to the city council. And so two of the 4 parks will bear Dakota names for those new parks. So it's just a really cool time, I think, in St. Paul for us to be able to have that kind of input as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And please tell our audience how they can donate. I know that you guys are going to be looking for another $1 million. So get your pockets, get your money out, and let's give money to this great project. How could they donate?
Yeah, well, we have a very small but important gap that we have to close before October. So we need to raise another $67,000 from the community prior to October so we can break ground. And so we're looking for somebody who has the ability and willingness to donate that so we can get this project in the ground. And then after that, we have, like you said, another $1 million to raise, and that is for phase 2 of the project, which will include an expanded parking lot, and then trails from the parking lot leading up to the center, and other landscaping. as well as an operating reserve. So you could go to lowerphalencreek.org/donate or connect with me directly, Maggie Lorenz, and you can find my contact info on our website.
We'll be back after this short break. If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Welcome back. Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. I'm sitting in for Robert today. He'll be back tomorrow. This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Ooh.
Awesome. And we're going to be talking to Lewis Eagle Thunder. Lewis is a Lakota activist, father and history keeper, a citizen of the Rosebud Sioux Nation. He's also on TikTok teaching history, and you can follow him at Lakota Guy. Hey, Lewis, how are you? And thanks for taking the last segment of the show today. We really appreciate it.
It always feels weird without Robert here. You know, that's it every time. I miss his goatee. You know, I miss his black hair, salt and pepper, salt shaker, right?
Seriously.
But he's awesome. But thank you so much. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about something that I think maybe a lot of our audience may not know, which is treaties. And you know, we talked about the TP Wakan Center with Maggie Lorenz, and she's such an amazing person, and getting all this done, and you know, repatriation of our identity, you know, and you know, the Dakota people in Minnesota have a real tragic story when it comes to, you know, Governor Ramsey and, you know, Henry Sibley. You hear all these names in Minnesota, and you don't realize how atrocious they were to the indigenous people in Minnesota. You know, I mean, even it continues today with the 1855 Chippewa Treaty up there in Line 3. You know, this is a holistic issue of Native erasure that continues today. But what backs us up in our nation to nation, you know, relationship is treaties, and treaties are supreme law of the land. And people may not understand that, you know, treaties are alive today. It's just not something in antiquity. It's not something in a black and white reel. It's real life issues today. You know, when we talk about, you know, clean water, clean air, protecting our wildlife, protecting our, you know, our animals, and all of this can be done by just asserting our treaty rights. You know, these were nation to nation agreements, and you know, people love the Second Amendment, they love the First Amendment, they like talking about things like, oh, my gun rights, oh, my freedom of speech. Well, what also is a constitutional back thing is treaties. So one of the things we talk about often is healthcare and healthcare among Indigenous people. And, there is treaty obligations to Indigenous people to take care of their health. And one of them is the Indian Health Service. Also, a lot of it is self-determination. And one of the things that are coming up these days is in South Dakota, specifically on July 1st, the first medical marijuana dispensary is opening on the Flandreau Sioux Reservation. And when we talk about, medicinal practices and organic practices of medicine, we talk about things that, the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want us to talk about, things like, opioid addiction and all these crises that are happening to our people. And how do we go back to a, nature-centered life? How do we go back to a life that's centered around treating nature as one with ourselves? And one of it is going back to natural medicine. And part of that is, thinking about alternative medicine for things like childhood epilepsy, which, medicinal marijuana has been proven to be, really effective against. And we think about things like, cancer and all these other treatment facilities. I think we should be exercising every type of medicine we can use to help people, not just go the big pharma route. And that, I think, is a holistic approach to understanding, our relationship with the earth is one of, they give us medicine, and in return, we're supposed to take care of the earth. So, July 1st, a medical dispensary opened, and, Governor Kristi Noem in South Dakota is really fighting, tribes into, approving the measure of medical marijuana. And this discrepancy came up with medical marijuana cards for non-tribal members. And it's been determined in South Dakota that, we're not going to honor those cards. And the Flandreau Santee Sioux are saying, hey, this is a treaty right. This is, a right that we want to give to our people, that, they have a right to, medicinal medicine. They have a right to, all of these things, because we're under self-determination. And it's important to understand that, we all have to be allies with thinking about, how we can come together, Indigenous, non-Indigenous people, when it comes to, ensuring the outcomes of our children. We talk about K through 12 education. Again, that can relate to a treaty right. We could talk about, again, repatriation and tell our own story, like exactly what Maggie Lorenz is doing. That could be talked about, in treaties as well. So, the important thing I want to tell our audience this evening is just to, get involved in our community issues, get involved in things like, Line 3 and things that affect our children, because those the black snake and the oil pipelines, it just takes one major leak, and then we have a whole waterway affected of irreversible damage that we can never go back with. We can never take that oil out of the water to a point where it's like it never happened. That's why it's important to think about where we spend our money. If you're going to be donating money or you're donating to causes, make sure your money is going to those those communities and those organizations that are helping our environment and helping, us sustain life on this planet.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the big pharma. Me being a retired pharmacist, I know, Lewis, that I would just love when I had a patient in front of me and, they needed, high blood pressure medication, or they had high cholesterol, and instead of taking a medication, they really were interested in, eating a more healthy diet and getting, exercise and doing those things for their bodies, for themselves. And every time we were able to take a patient off a medication, it would just make me so happy. I was the pharmacist in the clinic that believed, who wanted to have that type of holistic approach. And I did have a lot of Native American patients there, and white, and every different kind. I was over at the University of Minnesota. So that always made me so happy that people didn't have to fill their prescription anymore, and they got to, live a healthy life. So thank you for bringing that part up. I do appreciate that. And I think that we could all just do a little bit. It doesn't have to be big, giant changes that are really hard to do, but just little steps and small changes really make a big difference. That's what I would tell patients when I spoke to them about their health and their medications.
Exactly. Everything's just a step. I mean, everything that we do, a step in the right direction is 1,000 steps towards justice and 1,000 steps against things that we've done in the past. The erasure of indigenous people, the erasure of our rights, the erasure of these anti-climate, pro-corporate decisions that we've made. And what I'm really encouraged by, and I want to keep our audience encouraged too, is that things like Line 3, things like the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016 has caused a resurgence of a generation of people to think about, their environment, think about how we can get involved in knowing that, look, this earth is just not a dispensary that will have unlimited resources that it could just divvy out all day and night, that, eventually things are going to run out. Eventually things are going to, go away and we're going to have irreversible damage. And, are we going to be on the side of history, on the side of protecting the earth, protecting our water, protecting, indigenous rights of children and our future? Or are we going to be on the side of corporate interests, corporate greed, and allowing them to make a big buck? Well, the majority of us are working 2 jobs in this inflated housing market and, unable to accumulate wealth when all these, the 1% go live a high life. Well, we're around dirty water and irreversible environmental damage.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lewis. That was great thoughts. I would like to end with these thoughts. If you have been listening to this show, you are the resistance. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I would like to thank Ogimaa for the news and events. Lewis, Eagle Thunder, Maggie Lorenz, who was the executive director of the Phalen Creek Project and Wakan Teepee Center. Free Leonard Peltier.